The super middleweight class of motorcycles is soon to hit showroom floors, and I've got to ask, are any of you guys planning on buying one of these bikes? Now, which ones am I talking about? Well, motorcycles like the Yamaha R9. This is a middleweight sport bike that's going to be utilizing the CP3 triple engine, roughly 900 cc's, that's proven itself to be reliable and powerful and powers some of their more popular motorcycles. First one that should come to mind is the MT-09. Bike seems to get nothing but love from anybody that rides it. But there's other motorcycles to consider. You've got the KTM RCR 990, which is going to be powered by the same parallel twin that powers the Duke 990. Pretty potent bike in its own class, sport naked. But you've also got Ducati, who have retooled the Panigale V2 to fit this same mold. They've gone down in displacement with that L-twin, and you're going to have somewhere again in that 120-ish horsepower range on a motorcycle that has had a ton of weight cut out of it. Pretty impressive when you start to look at the motorcycles by themselves, but there are other motorcycles that are out there that could fit this new middleweight class. The first one that comes to mind is a bike that has been around since as long as many of us have been alive, which is the GSX-R 750. But it makes a ton more horsepower and about the same amount of torque as some of these 900-ish cc middleweights are looking to put down. I guess saying all of that, basically setting the table for you to ask the question, are you ever going to buy one of these bikes? If you're coming from a leader class mentality, I don't know that these middleweights are really ever going to cut it for you. I mean, yeah, they make great torque and it's usable torque, especially if mainly what you're doing is street riding. They basically are in the same class when it comes to torque production at around 70 or 80 foot-pounds, but they just don't make the power up top past around 10,000 RPM. When these middleweights start to sign off, the leader class bikes just keep pulling. Now, if you're a 600cc bike fan, you may look at these middleweights, if you will, and say, yeah, but they don't rev. And part of the allure and the fun of a 600cc sport bike is revving it to 14, 15, 16 plus thousand RPM. And mind you, the 600s will make as much or more horsepower than the super middleweights when you really start to wring them out. But you do have to wring them out to get to that kind of power level. But again, that's part of the fun. So for some folks, the super middleweights, although they do represent a nice marriage between the two powers that would be considered in this, 600 and leader class, they don't do well enough to beat the leader class bike that has been, well, around, that has been the middle ground between 600 and 1000 cc bikes, again, for, 40 years, the GSX-R 750. So, in my opinion, which will considerably wane in and out, I'm sure, but I gotta tell you, I don't know that I'm a big fan just yet. And the reason why is you do have the GSX-R 750 that exists. So without that bike, there would be an argument, I feel like, for the super middleweight. That, yes, you get all the torque of a leader, but you get the power of a 600. It's more appropriate for the street. That satisfies some people. I still think that argument is absolute nonsense. Leader class bikes can be the most fun, happy motorcycle you'll ever ride. So I don't really buy the too much power for the street thing, but I understand some people like to, that's a hill that they're going to fight for, so let them have it. But here's the deal. The GSX-R 750 makes basically the same torque as the R9, but considerably more horsepower. If you're looking to find a tweener between the two, would you go with the GSX-R 750 over the mentioned motorcycles in that super middleweight class? Are there some bikes that could maybe sway you into a super middleweight? What if Kawasaki took the Z900 platform, put a full fairing on it, maybe give it a bit of a retune? Now you've got 130 horsepower, 948 actual cc's to play with. could be a real potent bike. And I can tell you that my experience with that engine family in my Z900 RS Cafe, once I had done everything to that bike to extract as much power out of it as I could, was a very fun motorcycle to ride. Very reminiscent of the GSXR 750, I may add. So that motorcycle being introduced into the fold may sway some folks into that middle ground. But I feel like there's some folks that are out there that find that middle ground represents nothing more than a compromise. They don't want to give up the top end horsepower of a leader class bike. And if you are a 600cc fan, they don't want to give up the RPM and the scream and the rush that those bikes tend to offer up. Keeping in mind that riding on the street, even when you are being admittedly spirited, you can only ride to the limits of the tires, the tarmac, and your own skill set. Any of these motorcycles can tax any one of those metrics. So, in essence, the playing field is roughly level. And to say that one would do better on track is, for a lot of people, kind of a non-starter because they don't track these motorcycles. These are all street guys. So, again, I will pose the question to you. If you are currently a motorcyclist in the sport bike class, are you thinking about this new super middleweight? And if you are, which one is actually drawing your attention to it? Do you feel like this compromise between the two, the 600 and the leader class, makes this a better street bike? Or do you feel like the compromise is really unnecessary and that it's something that you probably wouldn't find yourself all that attracted to? I'd love to hear your take on these bikes. Post up your comments, let me know, and I catch you on the next one. Thanks again.